The senator entered the room utilizing two artificial limbs, having lost her natural legs during a devastating helicopter crash on Iraqi soil back in 2004. Lawmaker Tammy Duckworth placed a file upon her table, took her seat, and remained completely silent throughout the initial 52 minutes of the proceedings. She simply observed Pete Hegseth as he responded to inquiries from her colleagues in a slick, measured, and self-assured manner. When her moment to speak finally arrived, she uttered a brief sentence that plunged the entire room into absolute quiet by pointing out that service members perished safeguarding the intelligence he casually transmitted. His facial expression remained frozen, yet a distinct shift registered in his gaze right before the legislator unsealed the messaging application records. For those who are visiting this channel for the first time, please follow our page immediately, as you are about to watch an intense moment where a wounded military hero forces a high-ranking official to answer for sharing sensitive military data over a public software platform. She did not arrive equipped with standard political rhetoric, but rather brought legally obtained and authenticated transcripts of those digital chats, fully intending to recite them verbatim to the audience. Inside the Senate Armed Services Chamber that Thursday morning at 19 minutes past 10, the session was officially designated as a standard review regarding the military's secure communication strategies and data protection protocols. This particular gathering, however, was destined to be entirely extraordinary. The senator marched inside bearing only one hefty brown package that was firmly secured shut by a brightly colored confidentiality label. She placed the document on her workspace without breaking the seal, remaining entirely mute for nearly an hour while actively observing the event without writing anything down or making any inquiries. The defense official appeared highly at ease, having thoroughly anticipated interrogations regarding the digital application and internally rehearsed his justifications involving private phones, unauthorized networks, and accidental recipient additions. Having delivered these exact excuses during a trio of prior sessions, he recited them flawlessly and without hesitation. He foolishly assumed he could predict the trajectory of the morning, blissfully unaware of the damning evidence contained within that sealed folder. The preliminary portion of the meeting addressed typical topics such as clearance regulations, encrypted transmission mandates, and rules for approving digital hardware. Providing remarkably refined responses, the official referenced specific military guidelines, mentioned the standard confidentiality contracts executed by top executives, and appeared entirely secure while briefly glancing at his prepared materials. The combat veteran then engaged her microphone and addressed the secretary with a remarkably steady tone, devoid of rage, reflecting a conscious choice to suppress her feelings to clearly deliver her message. She stated her intention to pose several queries to him, but first demanded to establish a deeply personal context for the official transcript. Staring right into his eyes, she recounted sacrificing her limbs overseas in the same tragic incident where her flight engineer perished during an assignment demanding strict secrecy. Every individual involved in that deployment recognized that compromising our tactical details to enemy forces would guarantee a lethal outcome for the squad. She emphasized that this concept is far from theoretical for her, pointing to the visceral memory of a dusty landscape near an Iraqi airbase 2 decades prior as proof of her reality. A profound silence blanketed the entire congressional chamber. Unsealing the package, she explained that reviewing the subpoenaed digital transcripts supplied by his department was not a bureaucratic exercise for her, but rather an agonizing reminder of the real-world consequences of intelligence breaches. Extracting the initial piece of evidence, she identified it as an official agency record of a digital group conversation containing over 20 members that operated throughout the previous late winter. Placing the paper beneath the projector, she displayed the censored timestamps and dialogues across every monitor, fully exposing the sensitive text transmitted via a civilian software product. Turning to a marked section, she highlighted a specific daytime transmission dated the 1st of March that originated directly from his personal profile. Reciting the text to the room, she revealed the precise takeoff schedules for fighter jets and the exact mapping coordinates for upcoming attacks on hostile military installations. Raising her gaze, she emphasized that these highly sensitive locations and flight timetables were blasted across the digital platform barely half an hour prior to the actual deployment of the jets. The audience did not burst into an uproar, but instead settled into a heavy, stunning quiet that demonstrated their sudden comprehension of the severe national security breach. The narrator pauses the story to urge viewers who value military safety to immediately boost the engagement on this upload using the platform tools, explaining that community support is vital for ranking the content before the lawmaker unveils even more devastating transcripts. The official's legal counsel abruptly stood up, protesting to the committee head that reading such highly sensitive tactical data aloud violated federal intelligence protocols. With unwavering authority, the presiding officer ordered the lawyer to take his seat, firmly stating that the panel had properly cleared the paperwork for public consumption. The defense secretary leaned toward his microphone, defensively arguing that the civilian application utilized advanced encryption coding to protect the controversial transmissions from external threats. Without elevating her volume, the senator delivered a stinging rebuttal, clarifying that while encryption prevents outside hacking, it completely fails to hide the data from the dozens of internal group members, which alarmingly included a media reporter. Stopping momentarily, she named the specific prominent magazine writer who had been mistakenly invited to the chat, proving he obtained every classified detail regarding the air raid schedules and attack vectors. She then revealed a second piece of paper, identifying it as a formal intelligence review of the digital breach that was finalized in mid-March and recently cleared for public disclosure. Opening the report, she quoted the federal agency directly, asserting that the shared data provided enemies with ample opportunity to relocate forces or arrange defensive strategies prior to the jets arriving. Lowering the document, she translated the bureaucratic language into a blunt accusation, informing the secretary that top intelligence officials concluded his reckless text message could have easily resulted in the slaughter of American aviators. Glaring at the official, she professed intimate familiarity with the horrors of a compromised military operation, having witnessed the carnage both firsthand from a cockpit and later through grim fatality statistics. She then retrieved a third file presenting his personal signature on a federal secrecy pledge authorized merely 48 hours after his swearing-in ceremony. Flipping to a highlighted paragraph, she read his own endorsed promise acknowledging that leaking protected intelligence through civilian software or private phones could trigger severe legal consequences and criminal charges. Setting the contract aside, she calculated the shockingly brief window of just over a month between his legal oath of secrecy and his negligent transmission of active combat coordinates. Grabbing her mobile device to launch a timer, she asked the secretary to confirm whether he comprehended the illegality of broadcasting highly sensitive battle plans to a chat containing media personnel right before an actual raid, vowing to track his silence. After initiating the clock and watching the room squirm for nearly a minute, the combat-tested lawmakers stood up to remind him that those airborne warriors were executing their final safety protocols while relying entirely on his discretion. As the digital clock ticked past a minute on the monitors, the committee head demanded a response while a fellow lawmaker pressed the defense official on his awareness of the reporter's presence in the digital group. With the timer approaching 2 minutes, the secretary remained speechless while his junior lawyer attempted to intervene, only to be harshly ordered back into her chair by the presiding official. Hitting the 2-minute mark, the senator approached the desk to announce an additional intelligence report detailing enemy movements following the leak, though she opted to let him review the damning findings privately later. With his demeanor turning rigid and uneasy, she retrieved a final roster containing the identities of all recipients, revealing that federal investigators had already questioned several former government employees regarding the breach. The mention of federal law enforcement struck the chamber heavily, prompting a conservative colleague to quietly beg the secretary for an explanation, though the official merely averted his eyes downward. As the clock struck 184 seconds, she highlighted massive financial discrepancies involving billions routed to vanished corporate entities, before literally reminding the room that security protocols exist because brave individuals sacrifice their lives to establish them. Halting the timer precisely at 3 minutes and 1 second, she addressed the leadership, proposing that the entirety of the digital transcripts, the intelligence evaluations, and the signed secrecy oaths be officially submitted into evidence due to his silence. She subsequently requested a formal referral to federal prosecutors to explore possible criminal charges under espionage laws regarding the reckless endangerment of military secrets and deceitfulness before lawmakers. Her final demand for a comprehensive internal audit of all inappropriate data sharing by defense leaders since the prior January received instant backing and unanimous approval from the panel. Gathering her paperwork, she offered him one last piercing look, reminding him that her devastating physical injuries resulted from an operation where planners correctly valued intelligence protection and dutifully safeguarded their personnel. Sealing her package, she condemned his staggering cowardice in refusing to address his own negligence, declaring that the airmen involved in that specific raid, along with all future aviators, deserved vastly superior leadership before turning her back on him forever. Please subscribe to the channel immediately, as our next upload will reveal the unread portions of that intelligence report detailing exactly what the enemy forces accomplished during that brief window. Following the Secretary's digital leak, the paperwork is entirely authentic. The chat records were legally seized, the security evaluation is publicly cleared, and the officials simply chose a prolonged silence rather than confess to recklessly sharing bombing plans on a civilian platform with a reporter. Ensure you engage with and distribute this broadcast widely, highlighting the sheer audacity of broadcasting sensitive attack vectors online mere minutes before takeoff and the incredible resilience of the wounded hero who finally held him accountable.